speaker for the day comes with more than 16 years of experience of driving change at organization level. He's a champion for empathy based business transformation and has co authored Leading with Empathy, a culture driven framework for empowering humans in the workplace, the home, and society. He's going to give us a deep understanding on why the culture of an organization must be rooted in empathy and safety for a happier workforce. Let's try to understand this very interesting topic featuring none other than Dr. Gautam Palappa.
The last 28 months have been extremely challenging for all of us within our world. We have, as humanity, changed into a completely contactless, digital first, remote experience where our patience level of the customers has reduced and everyone wants to get things as quickly as possible, but in a digital way. And what this has caused, this transformation of the entire world has caused for our industries is that every single vertical has been impacted in some way, shape, or form. For example, travel, if you think about it, we have new sanitation protocols. We have contactless interactions with the customers and with the people that are flying. You have these sanitation protocols when people are onboarding and debarking now that are causing additional delays to airlines. In addition to that, in retail, you have supply chain logistics, you have new things like buy online, pick up in store, curbside and home delivery. All these things have become table stakes for any grocery or retail chain. Hospitality has been shook a lot, especially during the pandemic. Everything had to be contact free and it needed to be sanitized, and the hospitality industry had to calm people down and make assure that safety protocols were put in place. And then finally, the food industry was hit a lot with shelter in place and with the restaurants all being closed, and introduced newer things like third-party delivery systems or online ordering and contactless takeout. So every single vertical has been shook by this pandemic. But it's not just one pandemic. Of course, we have the COVID-19 pandemic and the healthcare challenges and the inequalities that we had, but that is one of the pandemics. And this is something that I posit. In addition to this, and in addition to the mental health and wellness problems that we are facing, we also have a racial and societal injustice pandemic that has been growing on for a couple of years now. We have the Black, Asian, Hispanic challenges that we are facing in a number of countries. And in addition to that, we have religious injustice. We have caste-based system problems. And then we have social injustices that have crept into our societies, which is another pandemic. The third one is privilege and elitism. In a number of developed countries, you have white privilege and elitism as very predominant out there. Being politically connected is another thing. Being male is a big privilege. Having a legal status within an organization, within a country, is something that is challenging and is also an epidemic. You have remote work. So many people do not even have the privilege of working from home. And so even that by itself is a kind of a privilege and being elitist. And this is another pandemic that we have. Next, we have the economic inequality, and the divide between the rich and the poor is increasing. You have unemployment that is skyrocketing, the poverty that is increasing, and huge pay disparity. So that is the fourth pandemic that I posit that we are suffering from. And then we have anti-intellectualism. We have education inequalities, where you have people like anti-vaxxers and you have flat earthers and conspiracy theorists and deniers who are challenging society and challenging things that we consider as fact. And that is a pandemic in itself. And of late, we have a sixth pandemic that's coming out, that is the great introspection, or the great resignation, or the grand reset, as people call it. Talent challenges, low talent attraction and retention challenges is another pandemic that we're all facing. The numbers are outstanding. And so it's not just one pandemic that's going on. What I firmly believe is that there are six pandemics that are concurrently happening within our organization, and this is a very challenging time for us. I am privileged to actually be working with a lot of companies on their digital transformation in these hyper dynamic, challenging times. I'm a founder of Transformity, which is a thought leadership group that tries to help transform organizations through technology and empathy. I'm also an executive advisor at VMware. And in these roles, I've been working with executives and leaders in various industry verticals for a number of years to help them transform and to help them change. But one thing does come again and again as one of the biggest drivers for ensuring success in a transformation, and that is to have happy people or to have an empathic culture or positive culture. And so today we're going to go on a journey where I will start off with an inspirational yet cautionary story. And based on that, we are going to start talking about why empathic leadership and empathy is so important in this day and age. And then we will investigate how we can actually build and nurture an empathic culture within our organizations. And then I'll leave you with three insights as we go along this journey and provide you a very powerful framework that you can embrace and implement in order to build and nurture that empathic culture. So let's start off with the inspirational story. And the story is about someone called John Henry. John Henry, according to folklore, was a great steel driver at the Big Bend Tunnel of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. A steel driver is someone who used to punch holes into the ground so that they could lay the explosives that could remove the rock and help laying the track. Now, as you can imagine, this was very painstaking task and this was a very manual chore. And the organizations or the companies that were running these railroads wanted to pick up the speed and wanted to make it faster. And so they started to look to technology for it. One day, John Henry's foreman or captain, as he was called them all and introduced them to what was called a steam drill. It was a machine that was going to help with laying the the rail tracks and help with the explosives. It was supposed to drill into the rock, and then people were supposed to put the explosives into it. Naturally, as you can imagine, there was a lot of consternation within the camp. And according to the story, John Henry went to the captain and he said, I ain't nothing but a man, but I will die before I let the steam drill take away my hammer. And so he challenged the steam drill to a race. The race was who was going to lay the largest amount of steel. And so the race started. John Henry started going away, and according to a beautiful story by Ezra Keats, the verbiage says that the sparks were flying and the hammer struck the steel, and John Henry managed to lay 14 feet of steel, while the steam drill could only do 9. So John Henry won. He actually won that battle, and there was so much of cheering within the camp. And then he sat down, he asked for a cool drink of water, he drank it, he lay down on the ground, and unfortunately he died. So John Henry's story is an amazing tale of human perseverance, of determination, and of grit. But it also tells us a couple of really key things. The first thing that we learn is the importance of sustainable pace. So through sheer will, grit, and determination, we are able to have quick bursts of productivity and we're able to accomplish things. But manual toil works only for shorter sprints and it's not sustainable. And eventually it does come at a very high cost. In John Henry's case, it was his life. And so that is something that I really want us all to remember is the importance of sustainable pace. The next one is to focus on the value line. What are humans really contributing as value? So identify those high value activities. For a developer, for example, the high value activity is to write code or to create features that are delightful for the customer. And it is not about spinning up infrastructure, or it is to think about a load balancer or trying to survive in YAML hell. That's not the high value activity. So try to embrace systems and automation to handle those mundane tasks. So focus on the value line, identify what is value to you, and then embrace it. The third one that we really need to embrace is that new technology is not a threat. It is an opportunity that is given to all of us to upskill ourselves and to also improve human quality of life. So just imagine if the steam drill would have been embraced, the human quality of life overall in the railroad would have improved and it would have upskilled people to focus on other things. And we are at that pinnacle point right now within our transformations. It is that inflection point where we as transformational leaders need to really take a step back And we need to rethink and reimagine how we are trying to achieve our success. How are we driving towards the business value? And this is where I firmly believe that there are three transformational drivers that are going to really help us achieve our business value and achieve it faster and with a sustainable pace. And those are lean, agile, and DevOps methodologies. We want to bring in that lean experimentation approach. We want those build, measure, and learn mechanisms, the feedback loops, to come in quickly. We want to have hypotheses created and then try to run experiments to see if we can achieve those things and get data from it and then pivot or persevere based upon the build, measure, learn, the feedback loop that we have. Next, we want to have agile software development. We want to ensure that everyone has that pair programming approach, that test-driven development approach, or even BDD if needed. We want things to be more cloud native because that is where everything is going. And for organizations that are not in a software development realm, there are various ways in which you can introduce agility in non-software realms. And the concept is pretty similar. Pairing is something that you can do regardless of technology. In my role as an executive advisor, I pair with the C-suite and executives of different organizations and help them with their outcomes and their strategic initiatives. So pairing hypothesis-based development is really, really important, be it for software or non-software. And then we want to tie it in by reducing that manual toil using DevOps. You want to bring in that operational efficiency. You want to bring in CI/CD. You want to bring in automation. Again, the goal is to focus on high value activity and allow humans to focus on things that they are bringing value to and have the systems do all the mundane tasks. And that is one of the big tenets of DevOps. So lean, agile, and DevOps are the three most transformational drivers that you can have right now. But it's just not enough to have these three. You need to understand where you're applying it to and what it is driving towards. And so, for that, the easiest way to do it is to be rooted in empathy. So, when I talk of empathy, what I mean here is we want to have a purpose of reducing pain. It could be pain for the customer, something that they're facing, pain for the employees or for the workforce, something that they're trying, that they are suffering from, and we want to elevate them and make them happier. But the goal is if we want to accomplish something or if we want to drive to value, you need to reduce someone's pain, be it customer or be it an organization or be it a workforce. When you've identified what pain you want to reduce, you want to gather those like-minded people who have the passion to reduce that pain. And those like-minded people become your team. Now, when these like-minded people get together and they're starting to reduce the pain, they start delivering the value for your organization. And that is a true business value that you can provide. It's not technology that will provide the value, it's actually people. People are the true value creators. Technology can only be an enabler and accelerate you towards whatever outcome you want to get. But inherently, technology does not create value. So when you have all of this, the like-minded people get that motivation. They know they want to reduce that pain. They know the value that they're creating. And so what you're giving them is a purpose, and it drives them and it helps them. And because they're trying to reduce the pain, you are increasing the empathy within your organization. Now, when you have increased empathy, there's a lot of benefits that you can get. The first one is trust and respect. You increase your team bonding, you increase your collaboration, you increase your communication. The trust and respect level increases within your organization. And when that increases, you increase psychological safety. People feel more safer. There are safer environments that are created. There's lower attrition. Enablement increases. And when people feel safe, they can take risks and they can experiment and they feel comfortable with failure. And that drives your innovation. And when you are driving innovation, you have psychological safety and there is a lot of trust and respect within your organization. That's when you create a positive culture. You're able to break those silos. You're able to break those us versus them mentalities. You create a learning culture and you have overall humans. And this is why empathy is so important within our organizations today. So how does one become an empathic leader? I'm going to share 6 simple ways by which you can start embracing to become an empathic leader or elevate your empathic leadership if you already are one. The first one is really, really simple. It is to be authentic. And I say simple because it's easy to start doing it, but it's really hard to continue to follow through and do it. So I call this the say to do ratio. If one says that they're going to do something, they have to follow up and do it. And so if you keep your say to do ratio as close to one as possible, you are being authentic. You're building your reputation, you're building that respect, you're building that trust. And so being authentic is really, really important. However, helping can be hard. So really be careful about what you are committing to. That doesn't mean you shouldn't commit to anything because that defeats the purpose altogether. You just need to make sure that you keep your say to do ratio as close to one as possible. The next one is to be vulnerable. You want to wear your heart on your sleeve and you want to express emotions and show that you're human. Gone are the days when people thought that being a leader was more militaristic and emotions did not have a place within the workplace. Those days are gone. The minute we started working from home and we started inviting people into our kitchens, into our living rooms, into our offices, through Zoom and Teams and any of those video collaboration systems, all those boundaries blurred away. And so it is okay to be vulnerable. But remember, if you're being vulnerable and if you're being human, remember that you want to have vulnerability with boundaries. It is not that you're going to be an open book and walk around and express everything to everyone. You need to learn what the boundary is. So being vulnerable is the second one. The third one is to be approachable. And this is something I really miss, especially in the hybrid world, but we have a number of digital twins of these physical experiences that we have, and that's Gemba walks. Or management by walking around, where I used to walk all over the building. I used to interact with people in the hallways, meet people, have high fives, get all those happy chemicals out there. And I used to get a lot of information and try to really connect with humans at a very personal level. But now you can do that even digitally. You have skip levels, you have ask me anything, you have lean coffee. So there are many ways that you can do it, but you want to be approachable. Now, the next thing you want to do is to be attentive when someone approaches you. You want to have active, full body listening. Remember, it's someone who is approaching you and wants to share something with you is being very brave at that time because they're overcoming their fear and their reservations and their insecurities to come and talk to you. So give active full body listening. Do not be distracted with devices and other things. The next thing you want to do is ask more how questions or what questions rather than why. I know that in Lean Six Sigma, there is a really powerful technique to find the root cause analysis, which is the 5 whys. And that works well with systems and with processes and with environments. But humans are non-deterministic and non-discrete. And so when you start asking multiple why questions, they feel that you're interrogating them. And so they start feeling defensive and that shuts them down. And then you won't have that open communication. And so ask how questions or what questions or open-ended questions when you're interacting with them. And remember, all you're doing is creating a safe space. They are filling that safe space with what they want to talk about. The fifth one is to be appreciative. You want to praise in public and you want to give feedback in private. And if there is any outlier behavior, you want to evaluate that with empathy. Maybe there are some things that are happening. You want to put yourselves in their shoes and try to understand what's happening out there. And then the last one is to be connected. And this is really, really important, especially in this remote world that we're living in. You want to look for signs of overwork or burnout. And then you want to focus on reducing that manual toil. And these are the 6 ways by which you can elevate your empathic leadership or you can become an empathic leader. But the second insight I'd like to give you is this. One does not need a title or permission to lead with empathy. It is their actions to improve human quality of life which actually makes them an empathic leader. And this is something I'd like you to share with all your teams and embrace this because you don't need permission or a title to lead with empathy. And this is really, really important because a lot of people come back and say, well, I'd really love to help, but it's above my pay grade, or I don't have the clout, or I don't have the title to do it. But that's not true. Your willingness to actually help and improve some other human's quality of life is what's going to make you an empathic leader. So based upon all this that we have talked so far, how do we create that empathic culture? How do we bring in that goodness within our organizations? And how do we be more purposeful as we rethink and reimagine the strategies for success? And for this, I have a powerful framework, which I'm going to share, And I call that the 5 E's framework. And this framework has been battle tested and tried in multiple organizations. And this has really helped them not only achieve their successful transformation, but also sustain it. And I would love to share this with you all and get feedback from you so that we can improve upon it collectively and make it better. So, the first thing, as you can imagine, the first E is to empathize. You want to be rooted in empathy. After all, you're creating and nurturing an empathic culture. So, you need to show first that you're empathizing. You want to be an empathetic leader. You want to have and build that psychological safety within your organization, because that's going to help set up for your positive and empathic culture. The next thing you want to do is to empower people. You want to enable the teams. There are a lot of organizations that still operate on a project perspective, where teams are created based upon a project or an initiative, and then they're disbanded later. You want to start going more towards a product or a service centric team, so that there is consistency, there's cohesion, there is team camaraderie that's being built, and then you're empowering that team to take the right decisions when needed. Not the strategic, but at least the tactical and the operational must be empowered to that particular team. Now, once you've empowered the team, you need to engage with them. You need to have open communication. You need to be transparent and be candid and be attentive and be approachable. When we shifted to this digital environment and we started having this hybrid working model, suddenly our communication went up too much and we started generating a lot of noise, because we started repeating the same message in order to ensure that everyone was able to get it. But that means that the noise is so high that the signal is probably getting lost. So we want to improve that signal to noise ratio. We want to be very clear and crisp about what we are communicating and how we want to engage with people. Now, once you've empowered and engaged people, you want to entrust them. If you've clearly communicated the purpose of a particular team, what they have to accomplish, and why they have to accomplish it, and you've set the outcomes that you want them to achieve or the business value that they have to deliver, don't second guess how they're doing it. Remember, you have empowered the teams and you're engaging with them. So there's going to be open and transparent communication. So if something does go south, they will inform you and then you will have discussions. But don't second guess their how. There are multiple ways to achieve to the outcome. So empower them and enable them. Focus on delivering the why to your organization and or to the teams and the purpose, and then let them figure out the how. And then finally, the last E is equip them. You want to give them the right tools to be successful. It's not just about empowering and entrusting, but you do need to give them technology and tools, and maybe improve upon the processes to help them. So collaboration tools is really important. Learning mechanisms, upskilling, introducing pairing, and bringing that work-life balance is really, really important. So this is the 5 E's framework. It is empathize, empower, engage, entrust, and equip. And working on these and focusing on these is really important to build and nurture that empathic culture. So you want to start off with focusing on your work-life balance, because the first thing you want to do is make sure that your workforce is happy, because happy people are productive people. And that's one of my primary beliefs. So use the 5 E's framework to focus on having people identify and work on their high value activity, and then put in measures to increase automation and systemic approaches to reduce that manual toil. Then use the framework to improve and modernize your flow, your business flow. And this is where lean, agile, and DevOps techniques really, really help, because it helps us optimize those processes and improve the flow of business value within our organization. And then we use these things and increase that psychological safety within our organization. We want to reduce the stress. We want to increase collaboration and innovation. We want to improve the speed to value, which is where the flow modernization comes really well. And then we want to have overall happy people. But the third insight that I would like to give you in all of this is it is critical and it is crucial for us to embrace failure, because failure of one team is validated learning for the entire organization. And this is a very powerful tool that we can use. I try my level best not even to call it failure, because failure of a particular experiment just means that the hypothesis was wrong, or maybe we got the success out of a different experiment or a different hypothesis. So don't consider it to be a failure. It's not a binary mechanism. There is so much of learning that's happening, so embrace it. So how do you start off on this journey? Start small. Never start with the big bang. Start small. Remember, you want to reduce that manual toil. You want to reduce pain. That is the most important thing that you want to do. So start small, identify where the pain is, and start working on reducing that. Improve the communication and transparency within your organization. Then, once you've identified the pain and the like minded people, start running experiments, lean experiments, small hypothesis based experiments. Start celebrating the failures and successes. So, and share them within your organization. And then share. That is one of the big tenets in DevOps. So, you want to share. And here are some hashtags if you want to share in social media. You can also share it within your organization. You can even email me. I'm a storyteller and I love to collect these stories and tell them. And so if you are comfortable enough, please do share. You can anonymize it and send it. But I would love to hear the stories on how you're nurturing and building that empathic culture using Lean, Agile, and DevOps. And if you're interested in all of this, there is much more information in my book, Leading with Empathy, where I go into various tips and techniques on how to improve it. I'm hoping that all these various things that we've talked about today, the insights that we've shared, and the approaches that we talked about, and especially the 5 E's framework, will really help you transform your organizations and build and nurture that empathic culture using Lean, Agile, and DevOps. Feel free to reach out to me. I am very passionate about this and I'd love to have much more discussions. And thank you for being in this particular session. And I hope this has been very valuable for you. Thanks.